Hi guys, welcome back for another prop build tutorial with Cosplay Extreme. I do know it's been a while since we've done our last video, but at least here we are again. What is this prop, you may ask? Well, if you read the description, you would see it is Alucard's Casull. Cool thing about this one is it's a 2 for the price of 1 because you can use the same techniques to build the Jackal, also Alucard's weapon. So on the other side of this, watch and enjoy. So what are we going to need to build this sucker? We are going to need a reference picture or something you can use as reference. A broken airsoft gun, an assortment of cardboard, cereal box, this is an egg wrapper, a scrap piece of sheet metal, some ceramic putty, glue sticks, glue gun, tape measure, a ruler, black acrylic paint, paintbrush, craft knives, a pen, a short piece of plastic or brass tubing, plastic primer and silver spray paint, Bondo or body putty, contact adhesive, carbon paper or transfer paper. They are two different things. Let's get started. Step 1 is to prep the airsoft gun. We're going to be taking these off because they're going to be remade in ceramic putty. So using a screwdriver, pop that off. These little suckers we want to glue in place, we want to keep them. So what we're going to use to glue these in place is good old contact adhesive. Have something that you can spread it around with, clean the surface. Doesn't have to be liberal, just a little here and there will do the trick. The reason why we want to keep these is because we still want the gun to have a bit of ballast on the back. Once this gets tacky, we can stick it down. Do the same to the other side. Now we can look at putting the extended barrel in place. Now what we're going to do is we are going to glue this on top there. Well, what we're going to do to get the height that we need is we are going to make a spacer. And that spacer is going to be made from a piece of styrene plastic. All that we need to do is just score this boy, break them off. Three pieces should be enough. Next step is to glue these in place on top of the gun. So let's do that. Right, now we're going to glue these in place. It doesn't have to be super strong, so we can use a spot of hot glue. The reason we're doing this is to give this something to rest on. Now, a good idea is always, if you're going to be sticking to smooth surfaces, give it a bit of a rough up so that the putty can grab. Now it's time to break out the steel putty. You can lay open, doesn't really matter because the stuff needs to be mixed before it will set. And we can start mixing this stuff together. It mixes pretty tough, just try and get it all the way through. After kneading the Pratley steel till it's all tacky and so on and so forth, it is now in place. What we've also done is pull the barrel extension in with 2 cable ties to hold it in place so that the epoxy steel or steel weld Pratley steel can set. Once this piece is set, we can extend a little bit more if we really want extra strength. This is going to take up to 2 hours to cure. So next step is we are going to create a rough cutout of the slide of the gun. What I'm using here is a piece of old cardboard. So first things first, we're going to measure up 390 because that is the size of the Casull. Next, I'll just use a square to square it off. I'm going to mark it 50 and I'm going to mark it 50 on this side. What these are our fold lines. Here we go. That is the first of our fold lines. Then we know our next is about 28 millimeters. That is because I have already measured the top of the gun. So let's give ourselves our marks at around there, 28. And then last but not least, another 50. At this point this is very rough, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to be cutting more off. So now that we've got this marked out, we can cut this sucker out. Try and cut as straight as possible. You don't want your gun looking all weird and warped. We are now going to be bending this, but the trick is you don't want to cut it. So what do? Apply some pressure along the lines. That should give you a nice bend. Doesn't look like much now, but it will look like something pretty soon. Next we want to create the front. So the easiest way to do that is to just mark off. We don't want this to be inserted, we want it to be on the front line. Snip that off. Now if you remember, the Casull has these detail pieces at the front here. Which sort of like, so this is more of a sort of touch and go situation. I'm just eyeballing it, you guys can be more precise. It runs in like that. So that's going to get cut out, and then we'll measure where the barrel goes, and from there we can move on. Now as we know, the Casull isn't square like the Jackal, so we are going to just sort of round this by laying it in your hand and working your way down. It doesn't have to be perfect, because remember we are still going to Bondo this. This is the front end cut out, and the hole for the barrel has been cut in. So now it's just a case of hot gluing this all in place. Remember, you want a piece of the barrel to protrude, that way it looks, I would say, more authentic. Now what we're going to do is we are going to start reinforcing the slide section. Using cardboard, mark it off. And we can just repeat that cut. Should be about enough. Now just using some hot glue, glue all these strengthening bits in place. cut recesses so that you can put the bottom of the slide through there. Now we're just going to be marking off the bottom of the slide, which is slightly smaller than the slide itself. This you'll have to measure yourself because you will probably be using a different airsoft gun to me. Find the center. So what you want to do is you want to bend this over. A quick test fit and we're good to go. Now I'm just marking off the detail pieces on the front of the gun. Cut that out with a craft knife. And more test fitting. Next we're going to do the rear of the gun. What that means, we need to get the curve that goes in here. Next step is we are going to be gluing these into position. Now adding the bottom part of the slide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this all in place and add that section, which is the bottom of the slide, and glue that in place. Once it's all glued in place, I'm then going to go and bondo the entire gun. First I need to cut this out, which is the cartridge eject, and glue a piece of cardboard on the inside there to give it a recess. Okay, cutting this piece out is quite fiddly, so you want to be as gentle as possible and try and keep the lines as straight as you can. Now I'm going to glue the cardboard section to the gun using hot glue. Next we are filling in the back of the gun using a piece of cardboard. After test fitting, just cut yourself a piece and glue it in there. Doesn't have to be 100% precise. All you need to do really is to make sure that you get your rounds right and touch up where you need to. Now that we've got the back on the slide and the slide is glued in place, we need to put this piece on. So remember we bent this earlier. What I've done is I've glued a stopper in there. What that helps me do is push it in and just gently adjust until it fits. This we want to glue in place as well, so let's do it. Now that we've got that in place, we want to add this section over here. Now what we need to do is we need to overlay it to this point. So we're going to cut a slot there and a slot there to slide this whole thing back. What I do is I just use the cardboard corrugations to guide how straight I cut. Please remember that I'm eyeballing most of the stuff that I'm doing. You guys should actually measure it out a bit more, that way you'll get a far better end result. We're going to start bondoing. Use some hardener, take a generous mold of putty and mix it up. Try not to use too much hardener. Just spread it down. We are going to be sanding this down. Try and get it as smooth as you can. If Do yourself a favor when spreading body putty or bondo, use a flexible applicator. Using a hard metal applicator does not make this task easy. When it starts getting hard, stop using it. And now starts the tedious part, and that is sanding. You want to get the surface as smooth as possible, so that when you paint, you don't see all the blemishes. Remember not to sand the bondo all the way down to the cardboard because it will separate. Take some and fill in the holes or the imperfections. After you finish sanding, you should end up with something that looks pretty much like this. Yours would probably look a lot better. I'm moving forward in the interests of time. Next, we're going to be doing that. Using carbon paper. Tape it down. Using sellotape. Once again, on the lettering, I did not measure everything. I should have, and the result was less than satisfying. Remember, measure twice or 3 times or even 4 times and get it right, because to go back is a pain in the ass. I used a sharp tool to scribe the lettering into the gun or into the bondo. Once again, don't press too hard and don't force it because it will pull more bondo out than you really want it to. But once you finish, it'll give you a nice recess looking more like engraved lettering on the weapon. Next is to create that. I've already cut it to size. All you need to do is piece by piece. Once you're done, grab a pair of pliers and just bend it to shape. Then down to the spraying. I've sprayed it with a plastic primer and followed it up with chrome silver. Cutting the sights out of styrene plastic, and then just gluing it in place with Bostik, which did not work, so I turned to good old trusty hot glue in the end. Now we're going to do this using ceramic putty. When doing the gun grip, remember to work your ceramic putty. It will get a little dry, just add a bit of water to keep it moist. Place it in place and start cutting it down to size. Now that we've got the ceramic putty on the gun, using some water, we use it to smooth it down. Once the ceramic putty has been shaped, you can use a craft knife to trim it down to the desired shape. Now the detailing on the slide, I once again just measured off and drew some lines. Using my sharp pointed instrument, I then once again engraved this detailing into the slide on both sides of the weapon. The inside of the slide eject is actually bronze, so I am painting it with bronze metallic paint. When hot gluing this cardboard in place, make sure to keep it clean, otherwise you end up with undesirable ripples all over the place. Using some brown paint here to paint up the stock of the gun. This will take 3 or 4 coats before it is perfect. So remember to try and not mess on the finish of the silver, but you can use a wet tissue to remove any excess paint. Using black acrylic paint, dry brushing all the creases to give the props some depth. I also ran paint into all the lettering and wiped it off. This did dull the silver a little bit, but I like that because it gives the gun a used feel. Last thing to do is to put the slide run in the bottom here. What I'm going to use to do that is a upholstery tack. We'll drill a hole, push this through, glue it in place. Well, I guess that's it. I hope this helped, and I hope to see your own Casull soon.